Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today's video, we've got another Getting Started with Age of Sigmar 3rd edition video for you, and today we're going to be looking at the Disciples of Tzeentch, and in particular, the Arcanite Cabals within the army. The Arcanite Cabals are the mortal part of the Tzeentch army, and so in this video we're going to go through first what this army does and what we can get it to do, and what it sort of does, I guess that's maybe a little bit different than the rest of the Tzeentch army. And then we'll also talk about where to start with, what units we can then use to expand upon our initial purchases to get the army on the move, and then we'll finish it off with a little sample army list of 750 points, a nice starting size for an army to aim towards. Nothing too big there, so you're not having to paint 100 models at a time. But with that said, let's talk about what this gives us. So, as mentioned, this is the mortal part of the Tzeentch army. And in particular, we're going to focus on the actual, I guess, humans. I use that term very, very loosely, but the human part of the army. Reason I say loosely, look at that dude with 3 arms in the picture here. Now, this army, like most Tzeentch, is pretty magic heavy. You've got a lot of different casters. In fact, you've got more variety of casters here than you would otherwise have in maybe a demon army. What's really cool about this is there's some really fantastic spells in the mortal half of the army. I really do like a lot of them. And the magic heavy part of a Tzeentch army definitely is dealing damage with that magic. You've got a lot of ranged damage spells, a lot of things that do direct damage to your opponent. And some really interesting, cool tricks in there as well, with a bunch of spells on both War Scrolls and indeed in the lore. Now, you've also got a lot of range firepower with this army, and some great ways you can use with particular sub-factions, particular units that work well in those sub-factions to really get a lot out of your range firepower from the army. Especially when you start thinking of some combinations you can use with heroes and stuff like that, and some of the abilities we get throughout those heroes. So this army really is going to be ranged heavy. It's going to deal both mortal wounds and a lot of shooting at range. It's going to have some rend at that range as well, potentially, which is nice. And it's also going to have some mortal wounds at range from that magic, as we've said. With that said, let's go and have a look at exactly how we can start this force off. And so, to start off, I'm going to recommend grabbing a Fate Master. Now, this is a non-wizard Tzeentch hero, and I might hear you ask, well, Tzeentch generates summoning points for their demons by casting spells. Well, we don't need to, because the battle line option we're going to look at is indeed a wizard, so we're going to get that from there. But the Fate Master, he's a really great model, and he gives us some really unique abilities. So first of all, he's got his hovering disc of Tzeentch, so he's -1 to hit in melee, which is nice. This is a thing we get with all our demon heroes normally, so it's nice to have it on a guy that's pretty good. For our side, he's got a 4+ base save. It's not terrible for a model in this army, considering most of our guys are wizards, so they're going to have that 5 and 6 up save on them, so he's pretty reliable. He's got Soulbound Shield as well, where he can ignore the effects of spells and endless spells that target him on a 4+. But his real useful thing is he's got a command ability called Lord of Fate, where if you pick him, you use this ability, and until your next hero phase, you can reroll hit rolls for attacks made by friendly Tzeentch units wholly within 9 inch of this model. It's a really fantastic ability and combines well with the unit we're about to talk about. And so the unit we're going to talk about picking up first is, of course, Arcanites. An absolutely fantastic unit for the mortal half of the Tzeentch army. I really don't think they get enough love for what they can do. I've got a friend who's running this army, and hopefully we can get it on the channel sometime soon to show off. But Arcanites have a single ranged attack. They've got their Sorcerer's Bolt, which there's 4s and 3s, no rend, damage 1. However, they have their own spell they can use called Gestalt Sorcery, where they can get a point of rend on that shooting attack. They've also got some combat attacks as well. So you've got the Cursed Blades, which are 4s and 3s, no rend and damage 1, or the Cursed Glaives, which are 4s and 3s, rend 1, damage 2. So you got a little bit of an extra weapon there as well. Now, the Arcanite shields you can take throughout the unit can give them some mortal wound saves. They can get rerolls to hit if they take 2 hand weapons, and they also can, as mentioned, get those damage 2 attacks from those Cursed Glaives. Now, your Cursed Glaives also come with shields, so worth noting that. Now, there are limits to how many of each weapon you can have. In particular, the Cursed Glaives are the one that's properly limited. You have 3 models per every 10 models in your unit can have that Cursed Glaive, which is nice. But you've also got other things. You've got things like your Scroll of Dark Arts, where you get +1 to casting and unbinding as long as you've got one of those in the unit. Your Volchark does mortal wounds to enemy wizards. And as mentioned, they are wizards, so they can dispel as well. They don't just have their own spell to cast, they can also dispel, which is nice. They're a really solid unit. With that shooting, potentially getting some rends, some rerolls to hit on that 4s makes it a lot more reliable, especially if you maybe use a second command point on them, because the command point on the Fate Master, he's using that aura himself, so you can still get +1 to hit from the Arcanites using them themselves. And so that's a decent start for a Tzeentch army, and let's look at how we can expand this. And so, let's talk about expanding. First of all, I'm going to talk about the Gaunt Summoner of Tzeentch, because he's a really interesting beast. First of all, he is one of the only wizards in the army that has both the demon and mortal and arcanite keywords, so which is really cool. What this means is he can pick from either lore he wants to, so this is not breaking the rule of playing in this mortal Tzeentch army that we're trying to build. It's a bunch of mortal summoning demons. He's just that, you know, he's sort of like a demi-demon prince in a way. Now what's cool is he has his own built-in summoning mechanic where he can freely summon something to the battlefield, whether this be 5 Horrors of Tzeentch, or indeed get you something like Furies, which are a really useful unit on the table as well, or indeed Bloodletters, Plague Bearers, or Demonettes. He can summon any of them. It doesn't have to be the Tzeentch one, which is nice here. Now he does give up a spell for that, but as mentioned, his big utility comes from the fact he can be an immortal army that's going to use all the mortal buffs, but get a demon spell. His own War Scroll spell, Infernal Flames, is really nice with a casting value of 7. You pick one enemy unit within 12 inch of him, and then you roll a dice for each model in that unit, and on a 5+, they suffer a mortal wound, which is pretty solid for a spell. His Warp Tongue Blade is also really nice. It's got 1 attack, but I've rolled that 6 before on him to get those D6 mortals, which is really solid. Next up, we're going to talk about Magisters. Now, Magisters are really interesting. So they've got the Magic Touch ability. Now, this goes for either the foot or the disc one. I guess the disc is the main thing that you're getting out of the Magister on disc. He's a little bit more expensive, better movement, can fly, all that sort of stuff that comes with having a disc. But they've both got the Magic Touch rule, where if a casting roll for this model is a double and the casting attempt is successful and not unbound, this model can attempt to cast an extra spell. If it does so and the extra casting roll is a double, the spell automatically fails and this model is slain, however. It's a really cool sort of rule to try and push through some extra spells. Now, it says can, so this is what's cool about the ability, because it says can doesn't mean you have to, so you roll that double and do you need that extra spell, it could come up clutch in the end of the game. However, if he does die in such a means as doing that, he turns into a Chaos Spawn, and you got a Chaos Spawn in your army, so it's not all bad. Bulk to change, once again, he's just got some mortal wound ranged output like so many of our wizards, which is nice. We've then got the Curseling. This is a particular favourite of mine. So the Curseling, first of all, he's got Disruptor of the Arcane, where you can reroll Unbinding and Dispelling rolls for him. Makes him really good at magic defense. Vessel of Chaos as well. If he successfully unbinds a spell and that is possible for the Curseling to cast, it can immediately attempt to cast that spell even though it is the enemy hero phase. If that spell is successfully cast, it cannot be unbound. His spell, Glean Magic, is really nice as well, where he can effectively steal an enemy spell, which is, once again, really cool. So you steal this, and then you have his Vessel of Chaos dispel their spell and cast their own spell against them, which is solid. Lastly, let's talk about Tzeentch. You've got a bunch of different Tzeentch units within the army. They're much more combat orientated than the Arcanites, and I think they deserve a video all on their own talking about a Tzeentch heavy Tzeentch army. So maybe we'll do that in the future. But they definitely give you some combat punch where your Arcanites maybe are much more range focused. Definitely an option worth thinking about. Tzeentch Skyfires are a ranged option for Tzeentch. They'll work really well with, say, our Fate Master. We've chosen though originally. So you can definitely get some cool fire support and mortal wound fire support out of them as well. And so here we have a little sample army list for you. We've gone with Tzeentch, obviously, and we're going to be playing in a sub-faction called the Pyrophane Cult. So the Pyrophane Cult gives us the Chainfire Amulet as an artifact. It's an unmodified hit roll for an attack made with a missile weapon by the bearer as a 6. It inflicts D3 mortal wounds. You know, it's on our Fate Master or our Curseling here. Put it on either, whichever one you've got with that little ranged attack there. Doesn't really matter. You've got the command trait, which is subtract 1 from hit rolls for melee weapons. This goes well on our Fate Master here, which can now have -1 to hit in combat and shooting. And then we've got the special traits we get, which is, first of all, Arrows of Tzeentch, where you add 1 to the hit rolls made with Sorcerer's Bolts. In addition, at the end of your shooting phase, roll a dice for each enemy unit that suffered any wounds from Sorcerer's Bolts. On a 5+, they suffer an additional D3 mortals. So straight away, we're now down to 3s and 3s. We can potentially get Rend 1, and we're doing some mortals at the end of it if we cause any wounds. We've also got a command ability to use called Immolate, where you can pick a unit in the shooting phase, which has to be a Kyric Acolyte unit. You can reroll wound rolls. So we can get reroll hits, reroll wounds, +1 a hit, and Rend 1 all on one of those Kyric Acolyte units. This is pretty solid. The Curseling and the Fate Master, as mentioned, are in our army. We've gone for Bolt of Tzeentch on the Curseling. This is a straight up damage spell. Nothing too amazing here. You've got some really cool spells in the lore, but I think just trying to go on that full range damage output is a really great way to go. And then 3 units of 10 Kyric Acolytes round out our army. Potentially, maybe look at putting one of these into a 20, I think. And we've got the Chronomatic Cogs here to give our Curseling potentially an extra spell. Everything here is wrapped up inside a single battle regiment, making it a 1-drop, and we're 740 points out of 750, meaning we do have the potential for a triumph. So we've gone for Inspired for that +1 to wound. This could be really cool, saving us a command point on Immolate, which is nice, or potentially, working well alongside Immolate, giving us +1 to wound and rerolls to wound. So we could be 2s rerolling 1s, which is really solid. No reinforced units. As mentioned though, it could be 1 if you want to put 1 Kyric Acolyte unit together. You lose a little bit of board control, but you do gain a much more powerful unit. And no allies, 41 wounds, and a 1-drop army, as mentioned, thanks to our battle regiment. If you're playing with Tzeentch in the new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and especially with some Kyric Acolytes, let us know how you're going and let us know what you're doing. Even in larger point games, all information is helpful for newer players. Thanks for watching though, everyone. Tzeentch are great. I love the Arcanites. Some of my favourite models in the army. I can't wait to hear from you all on how you're going with your Arcanites. And so that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And while you're at it, leave us a comment and let us know what you liked about the video. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our fine community we've got going at Sinful Gaming, you can do so by following the link in the description of the video to our Discord server. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel in another way, you can do so either by joining our Patreon or YouTube members. Our Patreon and YouTube members help decide what content we do on the channel. If you'd like to help support, that would be greatly appreciated, and we'd love to give a shout out to everyone who has helped support the channel via Patreon, and that is our patrons: Christian Weir, James, Soren, Chaos Spawn, AJC, Kenny Lyle, Outer and Shop First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Cure Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, Donut226, Anton Nilsson, and JJ Austrian. And a special thank you to our YouTube members who, by the way, don't forget, when we've got live streams and in the comments, you can use our special emojis on YouTube. You amazing people. Thank you to our YouTube members: Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, Steve T, The Real Zeop, Chris Wallace, Turai12, Vinny, Lock Lorick, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, and a special thank you to Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork for the channel, and to Xmorphic, who does an amazing job at all the background work in our Discord server. Thank you to both of you. You do an amazing job and do so much for the channel. That's it for today, folks, though. Stay safe and stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the grey. Ciao for now.